Mr. Gibbons, moderator. Minister of Rural Development and Local Government, Senator the Honorable Franklin Khan, Minister of National Security and Member of Parliament, Major General Retired Honorable Edmund Dillon, Chairman of the Superior Regional Corporation and Chairman of TALGA, Vice Chairman of the Transformation Committee, Permanent Secretary, Mrs. Bascom, a very good friend, and perhaps the leading local government practitioner in this country, Martin Terry Rondon. May I have a loud applause for Mr. Rondon. Members of Point Fortin Borough Council, CEO of the Point Fortin Corporation, members of the Ministry of Local Government, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, burgesses of Point Fortin, of course, the media. It's a pleasure to welcome the Honorable Minister here to Point Fortin. Minister of Local Government, that is, because we always have our Minister of National Security with us. I thought that he should be here just around this time because on Friday, we'll be launching our now internationally famous Borough Day celebrations. And I'm sure you're going to bring us good wishes, and if you can help it, perhaps some funding to go along with it. That'd be nice. But our people look forward to this discussion because I think they have a lot to add to what has been going on in the borough of Point Fortin 36 years ago, just around this time when we became a borough. What you see happening in the borough of Point Fortin was a vision that the founding fathers put together. We have been following that ever since. For 36 years, there has been a consistency in policy, decision, and in operations. And that is simply because we have come from that one vein way back in 1956. The endeavor of the father of the nation way back in 1974 to bring Trinidad and Tobago oil companies under one head, that brought forward the borough of Point Fortin. We've never looked back. The founding fathers of the borough of Point Fortin, Mayor Blake, Chinkit, Achong, among others, they had this consistency of purpose. I have had the opportunity to advise 5 mayors in this borough of Point Fortin. I know the architecture quite well, and I have been entrusted by our present Prime Minister to look after that architecture and make sure the foundation is laid for the future. We have, in fact, encountered in the last 5 years some indiscipline in the way local government is conducted. There was no foresight, and in fact, we had encountered a lot of hindrances coming from the very top. And I am sure that by the end of this consultation, the Honourable Minister of Local Government will point out to you the direction in which we should go. We have followed that, Honourable Minister. I took note from our political leader way back in 2011, since he became political leader, and in fact, we think that most of our ideas were incorporated in the 2013 Local Government Manifesto. And indeed, what is now local government policy, we have contributed significantly to that. And I am very grateful that Point Fortin have been upfront. And we expect to benefit from this rejuvenated government that came into power on September the 7th, 2015. We deserve that. We mind this country for so many years. We'll know more about that in a book that is going to be published very soon, and it's going to be distributed sometime next week. It's done by Mr. Ellis Lewis and it talks about, from 1947 to present, the reason of a village. It tells the story of the presence of Shell up to the time of Atlantic. And I hope that all of you look forward to sharing that. So, with all of that, I was going to say a little more. There's too much to say in what we have been doing in Point Fortin. We are leading the way, and it is not by accident that our motto this year is transforming to sustainability, pointing the way. We've been doing that ever since we became a borough, but today it's more poignant as we continue our drive for the kind of autonomy that we require to take us where we want to go, the kind of autonomy that our leaders in the past, Chinket and Blake, saw. I'm going to tell you before I get to get to my seat, the vision that Mayor Blake and Ms. Williams and Mr. Chinket and Mr. Hagley and Gould and Melville and Hackshaw, what these people had. We were once part of the St. Patrick County Council. There were two councillors then, Blake and Williams. They had to leave here. You want to clean up Pit Privy? They had to leave Point Fortin, stop in Captiville Junction, get a car going to Erin, take a car from Erin to maybe Palaseco, Santa Fe, go to Separia, and then sometimes coming back from Separia, come to Faizabad, get to Ropus Junction, get a car to come to Point Fortin. And they decided, look, you know what happening? The center of decision making must be in Point Fortin. That was how the borough was born. So that we don't intend anymore to have to be traveling even to Port of Spain, Mr. Minister, for a number of things that we have to do here. And we are hopeful that when this thing comes through, everything that is required, or almost everything, within reason, will be deposited right here in Point Fortin, and people could see the benefit of all. I want to thank you in advance for putting the Immigration Office and other decentralized central government offices in Point Fortin. I want to thank you for that. But then we want to have the kind of autonomy that is promised to any city that wants to grow. Thank you all very much. Have a good deliberation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Now I want to invite to the stage the Honorable Minister, Franklin Khan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wesley Gibbings, our moderator. For those of you who don't know, well, I think everybody does by now, I'm Franklin Khan, Minister of Rural Development and Local Government. I want to welcome you all to this 11th consultation local government reform in Trinidad here at the Point Fortin East Secondary School, what we normally call PFC in my time. And I want to thank in particular Mayor Clyde Paul for hosting these consultations. I want to warmly welcome, even though he should be welcoming me, the Member of Parliament for Point Fortin, Major General retired Edmund Dillon, let me get it right. I also want to say that Point Fortin is almost like home to me. I worked most of my career in Santa Flora in the exploration and production department, and at which time we were in charge of all of Point Fortin on the exploration and production side. I was one of the major geologists. I see Mr. Enos Thomas here. Developed the Mackenzie field. I spent some time in Trinma also for a short while. So Point Fortin is home territory to a large extent. The mayor spoke about the rich energy history of Point Fortin. It is well documented. I'm not sure if he's right by saying Point Fortin mined the rest of the country, but I mean, they went a long way in so doing. Since the 1980s, most of the mining came from Mayaro, by the way, of the East Coast. But having said that, ladies and gentlemen, Point Fortin has a tremendously rich history in terms of energy, in terms of culture, in terms of football, and you're what I call the proudest borough in Trinidad and Tobago. Before I start, we just want to show a video clip.
Home sweet home. You grew up here And with hard work, prayers, and dreams, you made this into the place where you raise your family. But 4 years ago, the river changed course, right after they cleared the land for that compound on the hill. We and the neighbors reported it to our councillor. Not under local jurisdiction. Waterways were not under the control of the corporation. Ministry of Works. No biggie. We went to the regional office. That began the trail. A trail of paper and taxi fares. Door after door. Letter after letter. A trail as long as the river itself, left wondering which was the real destructive force. This or the long and winding river of red-taped bureaucracy. It was now simply a question of which would get to us first.
Ladies and gentlemen, the video you just saw illustrates the system and the dynamics that is not unfamiliar to a lot of you. Whether it is a river that needs clearing, a crack in the drain, a pothole on the road, a blown street light, an unkept empty lot next to you, a bus shed that is dilapidated, the list goes on and on. Under the current system, when a community needs something done, it has to take place in one of the many clogged and narrow arteries that run through the centralized heart of government. And that is basically the governance structure that has crippled service delivery in Trinidad and Tobago since independence now. At its most fundamental level, that is the issue. That is the problem. And it's because that this administration, and in particular the Prime Minister, Dr. Rowley, recognizes that. I don't want to sound too political tonight, but if you trace your mind back to the election campaign, the then political leader and now Prime Minister spoke about two major policy areas that this administration will embark on. One was local government reform, and the second was the creation of a brand new ministry called the Ministry of Rural Development. And although Point Fortin is a borough, you sit smack back in rural St. Patrick. Okay, so the Ministry of Rural Development will have significant impact on you, not only as the borough, but in particular Minister Dillon, because the Point Fortin constituency is not the borough of Point Fortin. The Point Fortin constituency is a more expansive area. So while I will speak on local government reform, I just want to spend 3 or 4 minutes on rural development. Because, ladies and gentlemen, to tell you the extent of the policy shift of the People's National Movement under Dr. Rowley, the UNC had 33 ministers. We dropped it to 23. And yet, the Prime Minister saw it fit to have a ministry dedicated entirely to rural development. And it is even more fundamental, because over the years, everybody used to say PNM is a East-West corridor party, you know. Okay, and all the development in the country took place in Port of Spain and its environs and along the East-West corridor. The jury is out on that, because it still develops Shagona, Scuva, and what have you. But at its most fundamental level, politically, this creation of the Ministry of Rural Development exemplifies a major paradigm shift in the thinking of this political party. I want to go publicly on record of congratulating our Prime Minister for the vision that has now to bring more spatial balance to the developmental agenda of Trinidad and Tobago, with a ministry entirely dedicated to rural development. But today is not about rural development. Today is about local government reform. Next slide. The issue of local government reform has its genesis in what has happened in terms of local government from independence to now. From independence, we had what we call the county council system. Okay? For those of you who don't know your history, the counties were created by Governor Woodford, who Woodford Square was named after. He divided Trinidad into counties and wards. the County of St. Patrick, the ward of Point Fortin, the ward of Siparia, and what have you. And in that local government system, everybody who were the county council, so Terry London in Sandy Grande, that would have been the St. Andrew, St. David County Council. You had Caroni, you had Nareva Mayaro, you had Victoria, and what have you. The local government reform process took a quantum leap in 1990 when the NAR, and we have to give them some credit, introduced the Municipal Corporation Act, where 14 new corporations were created, and the whole system of counties was disbanded. But here is a point to show how change is so hard to take place in a society. The county council system does not exist in law anymore. There's nothing called County St. Patrick. But you know, the Ministry of Education still have a St. Patrick office. The Ministry of Works still have St. Patrick and Victoria East and Victoria West. To tell you how we are a society of inertia, because we don't flow. And change is very, very hard to come by. Having said that, the fundamental weakness of the local government system under the municipalities was that while the boundaries changed and regional corporations were formed, the schedule of responsibility didn't change. So under the old county council system, in charge of cemetery, minor roads, recreation grounds, some aspect of public health, minor water courses, is the same thing you're in charge of with the regional corporation. So if you have no more empowerment than in the old county council system, it was just a name change. So what we are trying to do this time around, ladies and gentlemen, is for the first time, not decentralizing local government, but devolving power and authority and autonomy. And the genesis of that came with the Tobago House of Assembly. Because let's face it, all of you going to Tobago this weekend to jazz. When you go to Tobago, there's something about Tobago that tells you it is run better than Trinidad. Let's be honest. The roads are better kept. The green spaces are better maintained. The service delivery, the schools, you look at the schools, you see it's better kept. The health services are better, give or take a couple little incidences. But the whole service delivery function, the local tourism, every aspect of Tobago's governance is superior to Trinidad. It is not, when a Tobagonian goes to a THA office, they get service. They don't get a run around. Okay, so what we plan to do is to incorporate the Tobago House of Assembly model, and I will deal with that in some more detail shortly, into the Trinidad governance structure, because service delivery is what is most important in terms of the governance structure. Ladies and gentlemen, over the past, local government has not functioned well. They lack resources, they lack capacity, and they have not been able to provide the level of service to their burgesses as the burgesses expect. Part of it is their fault, but a significant part of it has been beyond their control. I will outline 3 areas we think that suffered major impediments with local government reform. Political interference, and I make no apologies for it. When the PNM is in power, the UNC-controlled corporations feel they are victimized, and vice versa. When the UNC is in power, the PNM-controlled corporation feel they're starved of funds. Okay? I have done empirical research to say whether that is true or that is not true, but that is the perception of the people. Inadequate funding, it is always inadequate funding that cripples and cramps the style of a regional corporation. There's so much to do. You know how to do it. You have the infrastructure to do it, but you do not have the funds to do it. And let me deal with the funding, because people ask me, with this new government, new local government reform process, where will the funds come from? Let me make the point very clear, ladies and gentlemen. This country has enough money to run an efficient country if you have efficient systems. I draw your attention to the last Patrick Manning budget. The 2009-2010 budget was $45 billion. Over the last administration from 2010 to 2015, that was ramped up to $60 to $63 billion a year in expenditure. Did you get any more service delivery from 45 to 63? That additional $15 million seeped through the crack. And it is my thesis, and I make no apologies for it, that a country of 1.3 million people could easily live on $50 billion. Once the money is well spent, when the money is well delivered to the services that it needs to be done. The inadequacy of supporting legislation is an area which I will deal with in a little while, because nothing happens in a democracy without legislation. You cannot do what the law doesn't allow you to do. Okay, so if we change the legislation, make it more facilitated, well then things can happen. And last but not least, a sluggish administrative structure within the corporation. And I will deal with that a little later on too. Because the structure of the corporation is no different to the structure of the county council. The same administrative structure exists. The same public service system exists. There's the same CEO and the AO5 and the AO this and the PIRO. And all these skills are no longer, a lot of these skills are no longer relevant to modern service delivery. Most of the corporations don't have engineers. They don't have quantity surveyors. They don't have supply chain managers. They don't have asset managers. They don't have planners. They don't have CAD experts to deal with approving plans and some of these things. So we have to incorporate a brand new administrative structure to give it the human resource capacity to deliver the services. So local government, ladies and gentlemen, has been burdened by bureaucracy, lack of funding, and really and truly, it is time that that has to stop. This administration makes the commitment that we are going to transform local government. And to prove that, when this process is completed, these consultation, when the legislation is changed, and when we roll out the administrative structure and the reform, which will take about 2 to 3 years, we will retire. I don't want to say abandon or disband. We will retire the Ministry of Local Government. The Ministry of Local Government will be no more. Because the Ministry of Local Government, let me say it clearly, is not local government. The Ministry of Local Government is central government. Local government resides at the level of the corporations. And the reason why local government reform never took place, when I went into the ministry, it had a pilot report, HISO, on local government reform. Mrs. Manning is the minister who did the most work on local government reform, before you can all remember. And Suraj Rambachan, in 2013, he had a green paper, white paper, wax paper, what have you, everything there. But ladies and gentlemen, at its most fundamental level, the transformation never took place. And I want to propose a theory for that. People do not willingly give up power. Nobody puts a system in place to take away power and authority from themselves. The only person who ever did that in the world was a guy called Mikhail Gorbachev in the Soviet Union. And that is why the devolution of authority and power could never take place unless it has the direct buy-in of the leader. So when I speak here, I speak on behalf of the Prime Minister, because this process is being driven by him. And it's he who is saying that we have to devolve the power to the regional corporation. And ladies and gentlemen, this time we can assure you that this transformation process is going to happen. Thanks. So what I promise you and propose to you is a fully operationalized and networked local government system. I think it is imperative in terms of people-centered development, and it will really accomplish a national vision that is next to none in Trinidad and Tobago. Let me go down to the specifics now. For those of you who study the PNM Manifesto, the PNM Manifesto did in fact articulate a vision for local government, where we said we will remove the red tape and the bureaucracy that prevents local government bodies from being efficient. To revolutionize and to bring a system in line with current recommendation, and these recommendations were put in place by a series of teams in the past, as the reports I have told you about, and this time around, we are having this last round of consultation before we actually start to implement the process. As you all know, also, the PNM Manifesto is now official government policy, so everything that was in the manifesto now has a coat of arms on it, and it is official government policy. Next time. I will now go through the 6 or 7 key items which I will say where we want to go, and obviously that will form the basis for the consultation later on, where you'll be required to take the floor, ask questions, make suggestions, do criticism, or what have you. First and foremost, we are saying secure funding. You cannot be at the mercy of central government all the time. So it is our intention to change the financial regulations, the Exchequer and Audit Act, to allow municipal corporations and boroughs to collect and retain land and building and property taxes. It makes sense because all over the world, municipal taxes are collected by municipal corporations. The state of New York, the city of New York collects its taxes. The city of Atlanta collects its taxes. The borough of Kensington in England collects its taxes. Why shouldn't the borough of Point Fortin collect and maintain its taxes? And here's the reason why also. Apart from giving you a cash flow, one of the problems, if you listen to the Minister of Finance, is that the lack of compliance in the payment of taxes. So here you have a centralized authority collecting taxes. So you have a revenue officer who lives in Port of Spain, and he in charge of collecting taxes in Point Fortin. The tax means nothing to him. If you have your Point Fortin Borough Corporation in charge of collecting taxes, knowing that they can keep that money and spend it back into Point Fortin, the onus will be on them to collect it, because you are collecting it for yourself to be spent in your community. So the level of compliance will obviously increase. So now, when March comes and the penalty starts, you will send your team out and say, hey, time to pay your tax, you know, because interest is accruing, and we know you, and we will publish your name on the papers, and after a while, you know your asset could be seized by the state. So there will be a greater level of incentive for people to collect these taxes and retain them. The next area that we will want to address is executive authority. For those of you who work in the corporations, you always know this thing about the administration and the council. Okay? As we speak, the councillors have absolutely no executive authority. Power lies with the administration. You can only act as a unit called a council. And you take decisions which are basically strategic decisions. You can identify projects that wants to be done, but you're not in charge of doing it. You're not in charge of tenders. You're not in charge of the selection process. You're not in charge of anything. You're just in charge as a council to say, I represent this electoral district. This is what we need. You come to the council, you have your projects in charge of it, and then you approve projects based on the budget. Beyond that, you have very little authority. That is why your pay is so small. Because the Salaries Review Commission states that a councillor is a part-time job. But that was in 1960, how much? It's not so anymore, because the burgesses demand more of you. So here you are in a dilemma. They give you an office. They make it worse because everybody coming to see you in your office. And they want things and they demand things of you. And you cannot tell the people who voted you into office, I am not in charge of that. First, the beginners are cop-out, and secondly, they will believe you're lying. Because they expect you to deliver the services to them. So that has to be sorted out. That has to be fixed. Our proposal is that, subject to consultation, is that councillors has to be full-time, and councillors will have some form of executive authority similar to the Tobago House of Assembly. Tobago House of Assembly have secretaries. So you have a secretary for infrastructure, a secretary for health, a secretary for housing, what have you. We'll have a secretary portfolio. And we don't know whether we will call it secretaries or whether we will, I don't know, we're still consulting on those things. But you'll have executive authority just or similar to what the Tobago House of Assembly has. So you'll be full-time. You'll have executive authority. And that is the only way you can now become accountable to the expenditure and to your burgesses. Another point which we will be proposing, again subject to consultation, but it is part of the reform process, is that, I hope I don't offend Mayor Paul, but we want no older man mayor again. You have to vote for your mayor. Because the office is so important that you cannot go into a local government election and don't know who your mayor will be, because you don't know who the alderman will be. So if you don't know who the alderman will be, you vote for your 6 councillors, and here you come, the party just slap a mayor on you. That can't be right. And I speak now as chairman of the PNM. It cannot be right. You have to know, you have to elect a mayor. Okay? We may even contemplate in the legislation. Because if you're voting for 6 councillors, the 6 councillors now with the party directive may choose who the mayor is. So you have 6 councillors, you win the 6 seats, which I hope you will win again later this year. And the 6 councillors now will wait on the party directive as to who the mayor will be. But then suppose the people of Point Fortin, they like who the party choose. That is a very distinct possibility. So we could say, I'm not saying we are going to say, but it is an idea, that you have to say upfront who your mayor is, or have a separate election for the mayor. So these are all ideas that we are playing with. But on the face of it, the mayor, very likely, the legislation will propose, will not come from your aldermen. Because like telling the chief secretary of Tobago is not an elected person. That is madness in terms of a democracy. Because the national constitution states that a senator cannot be the prime minister. Because if you adopt the same system, a senator could have been the prime minister of Trinidad and Tobago. But the constitution clearly states that the prime minister must be elected and commands the majority in the House. So if we talk about empowerment, we talk about devolution of power, we must talk about deepening the democracy. And you cannot get away from it. Because that is what representative politics is all about. The third point is accountability. We're giving you executive authority. We're giving you the authority to collect and maintain your own taxes. We are promising, within reason, that you will be adequately funded. Ladies and gentlemen, with all those authority and power, you have to be accountable. It is not your money you're going to spend. And people over the last 5 years in particular have become loose with the public's money. Okay? You cannot run a system where public officers and elected officers are loose with state funds. They have to be accountable to somebody or to some entity and stand consequences if they misappropriate funds. So it is our intention that the corporations will report directly to the Minister of Finance for its financial allocation, just as how the THA does. And how you spend the money, you'll be accountable to the Auditor General. So when the Auditor General audits you, and you say, hey guys, you see that? I know where this $500,000 went. And when they do the paper trail, you have to account. The only shortcoming in that is the Auditor General is what you call post facto auditing, which means he audits your books after the year has been completed. But foolishness could happen during the year. So we are also looking at having a sort of online auditing unit, either based in the Ministry of Finance or based somewhere else, who can have an online auditing function during the fiscal year. So where if complaints come in to that unit, they can go in and audit the regional corporation. Because ladies and gentlemen, one of the reasons why as a country we could spend $63 billion and don't even get $50 billion worth of work is because there's leakage, there's hemorrhaging, and very likely there is corruption. So it is something we have to guard against. It is something you have to know that when you hold public office, you hold public office in trust for the people. That is, you don't hold public office for the aggrandizement of yourself and for your ego. You hold public office in trust for the burgesses. That is what public office is all about. That is how democracy evolved. Other than that is totalitarian government. Other than that is a feudal system. Other than that is monarchy. Okay, democracy is about holding power in trust on behalf of the citizens. Another area, which is probably the most fundamental shift, is we adding new responsibilities to local government. As I speak, in charge, let me repeat it again, cemeteries, public health, recreation grounds, minor roads, minor water courses, some aspect of public health, and some aspect of building approval. Beyond that, you're in charge of nothing. But how many other services that the people of Point Fortin need? So here are some of the things we will do. School maintenance. As we speak, one company in Trinidad and Tobago is in charge of 600 and something primary school and over 200 secondary school, called the Education Facilities Company Limited. That is madness. Wouldn't it be better for the Point Fortin borough to be in charge of your 2 secondary schools and the 10 or 12 primary schools that is within your area? Because if you are responsible for the maintenance, you will make sure the school is repaired in time for when the school opens in September. Because it's your children going to the school. Because you have a vested responsibility in the school system. And the contracts will be managed from your area. Ladies and gentlemen, it will obviously be more efficient. Because you are seeking your own interests. You are seeking your community interests. The other aspect we plan to hand over to local government, and this is very, very fundamental, is social welfare services. Ladies and gentlemen, who better knows the old lady who gets in the runaround to get her pension than your counselor? Who better knows the families who are at risk, whether it is extreme poverty, whether it is child abuse, whether it's domestic violence, whether it's incest? All these things exist in your community. Who better knows the family that needs psychiatric and social services help? It has to be you. It cannot be a welfare officer who from San Fernando. The poverty, and let me just share some information on poverty for you. As we speak, there's a report in Cabinet. For the last decade, 2 successive administrations, Patrick Manning administration, Kamala Prasad administration, every administration spent between $2 billion and $2.5 billion per year in social services. Because everybody knows that you must have a social safety net for the vulnerable. 10 by 2.5, right? $25 billion has been spent in the last decade. And do you know, our poverty figures is no different to 2005? What that means, that as a country, after spending $25 billion, Trinidad and Tobago has the same amount of poor people than we had in 2005. Where did $25 billion go on? It goes in an inefficient system where the money doesn't reach the people who it is targeting. So at the level of the budget, when you had the budget debate, the Ministry of Social Development could boast and say we put so much money, but at the end of the day, it's not reaching you. Because it is in a complex system that doesn't have accountability and doesn't have a database that is reliable to deliver the service to you. Plus, it is corrupt also, because there are certain favored families who double dip in, triple dip in, quadruple dip in, because they know the system. I know there are families who get housing grant from HDC. When they get it, HDC database doesn't talk to the Self-Help Commission database, okay? Because they're in silos, so it's not a shared platform. So the smart ones now, they get their 15,000 in HDC, they go on self-help and start to cry, and they get self-help. And then you have all kinds of grants in social services. You have food card, you have disability, you have what is called long-time poor relief, they don't call it social welfare, you have old age. There are so many things, but the smart families who are well connected, they're benefiting from all, and the person who really deserves it doesn't have access to it. What we think is that if we stop that inefficiency and we bring the facilities and the money nearer to the people, we think it will operate more fundamentally, because I don't think anybody in Point here knows who is the social welfare officer in charge of Point. But if you know it is your councillor, and in your electoral district, you know it have 4 ladies there who will get their pension yet after that, you go to your councillor and say, what happened to Miss Mabel? Okay, why she can't get her pension? And X, Y, and Z getting it. So the system becomes more accountable. And ladies and gentlemen, it will be more efficient. Agriculture, local tourism, all these aspects of service could be yours. Because if Point Fortin has something that it wants to develop as a tourist attraction, you can't wait on the Ministry of Tourism to do that, you know. Because all the Ministry of Tourism, I hope the person not here, but they're here, studying is Maracas Bay. Because Maracas Bay is the highlight of Trinidad tourism. But there may be local tourism potential that reside in Point Fortin and its environs, or in Cedros, or in Icacos, or wherever. And you should be able to develop those things on your own accord. Employment exchange. In the borough of Point Fortin, you should be able to have a database of unemployed people by name, age, skill sets, CVs, waiting to match it to available job opportunities that will be on the horizon. Okay? And that is a fundamental part of local government all over the world in terms of employment exchange. We also want to introduce a system, probably more administratively than legislatively, of local contractors getting local jobs. Because if you have a box drain to drill in Point, and the contract was awarded to a contractor from Chagonas, just for example, I mean it in any way, and you see a van coming down with workers from Chagonas, that Chagonas contractor coming to do a simple box drain in Point Fortin. While legally there's nothing wrong with that because the contractor is a Trinidadian. But something about it doesn't feel right, you know. Because that contract could better be administered within the ambits of the Point Fortin Borough Corporation by a Point Fortin contractor with Point Fortin workers who will be spending their money in Point Fortin shops and drinking in Point Fortin bars when the Friday comes. Okay? Because there will be what you call the multiplier effect in the local economy. So these are some of the areas where the drain of your resources. So sometimes money is spent in your community and you do not get the multiplier effect of it. Because you get the physical box drain, but there's much more in a $2 million physical box drain contract than the box drain itself. The box drain itself is only half of the deliverables. But the multiplier effect of the $2 million spending in your community with local resources and local labor and local multiplier effects with your shops and your groceries and your businesses, that is where the value is. So this is really empowerment of the local communities. Development control is another area we will be looking at. We will be devolving the authorities of the Tongue and Country Planning Division. There's a new act called Planning and Facilitation of Development Act, which we plan to implement, where the boroughs will now be in charge of approving plans for simple structures within the corporation. If Atlantic has to put on a train 5, obviously the borough can't deal with that. That has to go to Tongue and Country for big approval. But if you want to build a home in Tichy, why should you have to go to Tongue and Country, where all these things could be handled by the corporation? Infrastructure works, we will be looking at how we plan infrastructure works in a big way. Disaster management is one area of local government I think is working quite well. You all are now first responders in the disaster management scenario. That has been working extremely well. Last week, Friday, we were in Tobago, where we had a tour of TEMA facilities. I hope we could get there one day, because TEMA, which is the Tobago Emergency Management Agency, is an extremely well-run organization. TEMA showed us software that they have, that they track everything online. TEMA's database, let's say Charlottesville, for example, they have a database that says all the houses in Charlottesville. If a Category 1 hurricane should strike, a red color flashes on the houses that will be destroyed by a Category 1 hurricane. So if there are, say, 200 houses, and 35 of them will be destroyed by a Category 1 hurricane, the 35 red lights come on to show you the exact house. So if a Category 1 hurricane is on the horizon, you know this is the 35 houses that is vulnerable. And you know who lives in those houses, so you know they have to be evacuated. So you wouldn't evacuate the whole town. You only evacuate for a Category 1 hurricane those 35 homes that are at risk. And that is the level of the database that we want. They have who will need wheelchair access, and it pops up on the screen. So the system is there, the software is there. You just have to have administration who could work it and the commitment to do it. Because, ladies and gentlemen, disaster management is nothing to laugh about. It is one of the most growing fields in the world. Not natural disasters. You know what all they have there? It's a time bomb called Atlantic LNG, you know. I mean, their safety record is impeccable. But at any moment in time, Point Fortin is vulnerable for a man-made disaster. A gas line could burst, an oil line could burst, a fire could take place in a tank farm. Okay, there could be a major oil spill offshore, and it has happened in Lavray and Guapo in particular. But Point Fortin is very vulnerable, not so much to natural disasters, but to man-made disasters. So it's an area that will fall under the ambit of the regional corporation. Lastly, involvement of civil society. Ladies and gentlemen, this whole exercise is geared towards deepening the democracy. And let us never forget that, deepening the democracy. Because people complain, and rightfully so, say that the only time they have a say is on election day, you know. So on election day, whether it's every 3 years or every 5 years, they vote for who they want to vote for, and after that, they have absolutely no say in the decision-making process. And there is some merit to that statement, and it is partially true, because the system does not allow for your participation outside when you stain your finger. So what we are proposing, we may include it in the legislation, that before the council, and listen to this carefully, before the council can take certain decisions. We may define the decisions in a schedule or whatever, that they have to come back in town hall meetings like these and consult their burgesses. And that will be a major, major improvement in the democratic process. Because at the end of the day, the people have to feel they are part of the decision-making process outside of the one in every 3 years. It happens in the United States of America. They have something called town hall meetings, and the town councils have to have town hall meetings before certain decisions are taken. The example I like to draw is Walmart. Walmart could say, you want to come and open a big store in your town. If the town council say, no Walmart. Good. Walmart, Mr. Sam Walton could know Obama. That is his business. America is a funny place, and I make no apologies for this. America is the most democratic country the world has ever seen, you know. They really understand what is democracy, you know. Even to choose a presidential candidate, you see how much rigmarole they have to go through? The party just can't up and say, Mr. Dillon is your candidate, you know, Franklin Khan is your candidate, you know. No, they have to go through primaries, and they have to vote and have delegates, and it's a 2-year process just to choose a candidate. They choose the president yet, you know. All the rigmarole is seen on CNN and Fox. It's not a presidential election as yet, you know. It is just choosing a candidate to represent the respective parties. And that is the level of democracy that exists in the United States of America. We could have something resembling that. Because really and truly, certain decisions you need to consult. You cannot sit down as a council and just take these decisions on your own. There may be some aspect of I know some of you all have kept council meetings in public sometimes. So all that is along the right track. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, the organization structure for the service delivery. We're giving you additional resources. We're giving you additional responsibilities. We're giving you an additional schedule of responsibilities that you would have. You must have a human resource capacity to deliver. If not, it makes no sense. So if I, as Minister of Local Government, and as a member of the Cabinet say, we're passing over all these responsibilities to you, we're passing over this additional budgetary requirements to you, and leave your staff in the same way, it makes no sense. The whole system will collapse. And you will still be as inefficient as you are now. We have to have a new organization, a modern organization that has the skill sets that could deliver the services we need. I say very loosely, we need engineers, we need contract managers, we need procurement experts, we need supply chain managers, we need asset managers, we need auditors, we need all sorts of skills. The technical committee that is in place, they have a lot of human resource capacity from the Ministry of Public Admin. As a matter, as we speak, we have all the unions on board on the committee also. So we will come up with an organization structure and skill sets that will really be compatible with the new responsibilities that you have. And let me just make the point, I make it at all consultation. This country invests $600 million a year on gate. Over the last 10 years, now is 600 million by 10, that is $6 billion. Educating our young people. And no matter how bad we think they are a lot of brilliant young minds out there. Your children. Because how do you feel sending your child to university, UWI for example, gets a bachelor's degree in engineering, get a master's degree in project management, then go to Arthur Lockjack and do an MBA. And when they come out, they get a OJT. And when they go to the OJT, they tell them, go and photocopy that for me or file this file for me. It hurts. And I make the point, and I make it at every consultation, underemployment to those young people is worse than unemployment. We have to make space for this next generation, ladies and gentlemen. And forget it, the little bandits and them helter-skelter that misbehaving. That is the responsibility of the Minister of National Security. But outside here exists a cadre of young professionals that is second to none in Trinidad and Tobago. They're IT savvy. They didn't know everything that's in the world. They could go on and when you tell them we search a project for you, I'm surprised that in 2 days' time, they come back with a report and they have all kind of statistics, graph and graphics to help you out. We have to make space for them. And I am making the point today without fear of contradiction that a lot of the staffing of this new regional cooperation administrative infrastructure will be staffed by young, bright professionals coming out of our university. But they are your children. And I heard certain people in Consultation say, well, you know, the thing, but you need experience. We need experience, and we will have experience. But for heaven's sake, the learning curve that took us, and I say us now because I'm over 55, the learning curve that we had is not the learning curve of the youth, you know. The learning curve of the youth, the slope of that curve is much steeper. And do not underestimate how fast these young people learn. And what you felt you could have only accomplished at the age of 45, by 35 they're doing what you could have done at 45. Because there's something, ladies and gentlemen, now called software. And software has made work easy. And once you know how to manipulate software, half of your work finished. Good? You need less people, but you need more skilled people. Okay? And to me, the greatest joy I feel in doing this transformation exercise is when I see opportunities for young professionals in Trinidad and Tobago. I feel that I have done my job. On the legislative side, we will be amending the Municipal Corporation Act. We will be amending the taxation laws. We will be amending what we call Section 69 of the Act to add these new responsibilities. And we will put it in law. Because here what will happen? Point Fortin have a ground to fix. The corporation has no money, so Mr. Paul say he has no money. All of a sudden, something called the Sports Company of Trinidad and Tobago land on you. Good, and they start to put up lights on the ground. You know who called them, who sent them, who counselor they talk to, nothing. The resources exist there. I just tell the sports company, go to Tobago, take a plane, and go and tell over London you come to put up lights in a gong in Tobago and see what he will tell you. Take the next flight back out. We have to understand role clarity. And if we put governance structures in place where people are responsible for certain activity, and you give them resources to do it, that is the only way the country can be efficient. I'll give you another example. At a consultation, I think I'm not sure where it was, but one of the previous consultations, this lady went to the microphone and she said, Mr. Khan, I live on that street. She said, and this week, the corporation come and cut it. So I was really happy. She said, next week, URP came and cut it. She said, and to my surprise, the third week, CPEP come and cut it. So here we have 3 agencies of the state tumbling over each other's back in an inefficient system, doing the same thing. That is where the $65 billion going, you know. And you're not seeing value for your money, you know. And somehow or the other, 3 of them have the street on their schedule. But you know the street next door, nobody cut it. That epitomizes inefficiency and incompetence. One street, 3 agencies of the state goes to cut. And further down the road, for whatever reason, the bush probably hides. Our problem, ladies and gentlemen, is governance. It is not money. It is not anything else but governance. And that is why the Prime Minister has put such a high priority on transforming the governance of Trinidad and Tobago. And nothing as significant as what we are talking about here has happened since independence. It is as important as that. So let us support the program. We will want to hear your views. Okay? But in essence, I think it is a well thought out program. I hope we're not biting more than we could chew, but we're really gung-ho on this thing. We have a technical team that is working. Normally with me would have been Minister Stuart Young, who is the Minister in the Attorney General office. He's in charge of the legislation. He would have been joining me on the stage, but I think he's leaving the country on Friday morning. He has a lot of things to finish. So unfortunately, he couldn't be in Point Fortin. He sends his apologies. Joining me on the stage would be Ms. Bascom, the PS, and Alderman Roberts, who is the vice chairman of the technical team. Timetable. This is the 11th consultation. Next week, we will be having the final week of consultation. There will be 3 consultations, one on Monday in Tunapuna, Piako, one on Wednesday in Mayaro, and the final consultation, which is the bringing on the curtain, so to speak, will be in the Diego Martin Regional Corporation, and that consultation will be attended by the Prime Minister, and he will be making some closing remarks as to the way forward. It is our intention that by September, we will have what we call an omnibus suite of legislation in the Parliament, very likely the Joint Select Committee in September, early October. Bearing in mind that October 21st, 2016 is when local government election is due. The Act gives us a 3-month period in which we can hold the election. So the back-end date for local government election is January 21st, 2017. Without telling you when is the election day, if we not go in January, because January is the THA elections. So I want to read and spell, but sometime November-ish, early December, that is the kind of time we're looking at. And let me just state categorically to the people of Point Fortin, local government election will not be postponed. So gear up, you have an election to fight, and that is for a different time and place. But I just want to give you the assurance on behalf of the government, there will be no postponing of the local government election. We plan to have the legislation in place. We say this is how we will run the local government system in the coming 3 years, and we have a 3-year now transition period to move into the new system. So, on the face of it, come 2018, around that time, Trinidad and Tobago, Point Fortin, and all of Trinidad and Tobago, now Trinidad in particular, will have a brand new system of local government reform where the focus will be on capacity and service delivery to the people who really require it. Governance will be better, life will be better, and we think this is a fundamental change to the governance structure of Trinidad and Tobago. And with that, I want to just say thank you very much for listening to me, and let's hope that we have a productive consultation. But before I close, we just want to show one video clip again.
That's Frank and Mo from Frank and Mo and Company. They checking out that construction going on up the hill across the river. A new residential something. Frank and Mo doing the environmental impact thing to make sure that a compound that big don't tie the whole place now. They get that contract from the council. Oi Chris, here, have a blessed day. Oops, almost forget my breakfast. Thanks Shireen, you too Nibs. Texted in my order since I get up. And in May, local theatre company School Street Performance Group premieres its new musical at the School Street Community Centre in May. I in that. A couple years ago, there was no local news. And even if it had any, I absolutely wasn't taking out no iPad to get nothing nowhere around here. But things different now. That's Maureen making her way to the new clinic. Local taxes build that. Carla just moved back from Canada. Toronto have nothing on School Street. Oh, by the way, that's the school they named School Street after. My brother worked on the new ventilation system for them. Culo Brizo. His office is 3 streets down so. On time. Yes, the bus is CNG. We petitioned for a few more and we're working on insisting that only CNG buses can use our length of the bus route. The carbon monoxide destroying the limestone caves in the quarry, and that will kill the tourism in the area. Now I see that the Komuto Council and the Pointe-a-Pierre Council asking for the same things. These pioneers.
Ladies and gentlemen, that video was just to do a comparison, juxtaposing. The first one where you saw the bureaucracy at work, clogged arteries where service delivery was a problem. This one is intended to show with a transformed local government governance structure how life could be much better to the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. So I now invite Ms. Bascom and Mr. Roberts to join me on the stage. This is the consultative part, and I now hand you back over to Mr. Gibbons.
Just want to outline some of the rules of the game this evening. When you come to the microphone, please identify yourself. If you represent an organization, please let us know whom you represent and get straight into the point. Of course, try to be as brief and to the point as possible and be respectful both to each other and those on the stage. So I would like to open the floor for discussions now. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, all protocol observed. I'm Anita George from New Village, Point Fortin. Local government. I'm in agreement with some of the things that were said, giving local government the autonomy to control things in the community or the area which they represent. But I have some points I jot down there, and I want to say, for this to happen, councillors must be in the office at least 3 times for the week, where you can see them. I'm really, when I talk, I get worked up.
Oh, go right ahead. Speak your mind.
Go ahead, man. Get
I
worked
had
up.
some problems in New Village, and I had to call all the radio stations to get it solved. Right now, 3 weeks I ain't have water, and I had to call the radio station up to this morning. All right. I want to say the councillors, not only a secretary must be in office, you must make a day or 2 days to meet your burgesses. If you are going through something and you are not getting through, call an assembly in a community center. You don't have to come in my house. Let the burgesses know this is what I'm doing and I'm getting problem. I will be in agreement with that. Another thing, I'm looking at the boundaries of Point Fortin from Lobray come back. This must be changed. One side in Cochrane is Siparia, one side is Point. One side in Captiville is Siparia, one side is Point. So if you're talking about change, you have to change this. From Lobray, come back, must be under the aspect of Point. So we're looking at that, the change. Now, to you, Mr. Chairman of the evening, I'm wondering, I like to talk, so I'm talking, but I believe that local government reform, they already have everything in plan. So what we're saying mightn't make a much difference, but I'm going to talk anyhow. The hours of work, or the work week for the borough corporation must change. Must change. And the work aspect and the attitude of the workers of the borough corporation must change. The borough corporation is doing some work in my village. Months, men sitting down there, no material. They come in 7 o'clock, they leave in 11 o'clock, no material. That can't work if you want to give borough corporation or local government a bigger autonomy. It will make no sense. So I want to say this attitude have to change. I don't know how we do it, because right now I believe the work attitude is comatose, it's dying. Another thing I'm saying again, yes, anything that is about to do in the village or in your community, the councillor must come and let you know. Right now there is a project in my area. I've been clamoring for it all the time. It's a wash place, it must be a bathroom or whatever. I have to walk down in the savannah to nowhere, and that is near to me. And my councillor office is about 50 or 100 feet from me. Come in the center, call a little assembly. This is what we're going to do. We normally have New Village spotlight. I have to hear it on radio, we ain't have nothing. I'm really upset. So I want to say, I wish that the whole attitude must change. For you to give all this autonomy to councillors, they have to come better. They have to go through training. They have to know how to meet people. They have to have a different attitude. and that to conduct themselves better. I am really, I don't want to get worked up, and I just want to calm myself. But I have some real issues, and I believe I go talking anyhow, but Mr. Cannon say what they have to do and what they plan to do is good, but it ain't good enough for me. So I want to thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm sure the minister has responses.
We have been getting similar comments to that at virtually all the consultations. First and foremost, I don't want to be too defensive of the councillors, but as I mentioned earlier, the Salaries Review Commission now see them as part-time officers. A lot of them will have their full-time jobs. So in the new system, when they become full-time councillors, they can accede to the request of being in their office 3 times a week or twice a week or 5 days a week, it doesn't matter. On the other aspect of it, what's the point she made again?
It was boundaries. And
the boundaries and
the accessibility of staff at the office.
Yeah, the issue of productivity. I didn't deal with it. I normally dealt with it in a lot of the other meetings. But you are right. The productivity level has to increase. I said in a lot of consultations that probably local government is one of the most inefficient aspects of government because you don't see the workers. 10 o'clock you pass and you're looking for any gang. You can't see none. Okay? In some corporation, I know if Point Fortin is one, you go to the office. They are 10 o'clock, 11:30 to see some officer, to make a complaint or to seek services in some area there is none. So I agree with you. But having said that, inefficiency exists throughout Trinidad and Tobago. So the same things you say about local government, in another consultation, we've had a consultation on the Ministry of Works, you could have made the same point. The aspect about it is that as a people, we are unproductive. As a people, we do not understand you have to give a fair day's work for a fair day's pay. And that has been bred by years of affluence. And God knows what He do when He drop the price of oil. So Trinidadians, we have to wake up, smell the coffee, and understand that as a people, we cannot depend on the bounty of God forever to survive. You have to become resilient. And this low oil price scenario is a lesson to Trinidadians that, listen guys, for us to survive as a people, we have to become more efficient and more productive. But having said that, that doesn't take away from the fact that we need local government reform. That is another issue which we will deal with at a national level.
And Minister, the boundaries that don't seem to make sense.
The boundaries, yeah, I can probably say something on the boundaries. You have to understand, this is not two corporations that defining boundaries. A borough means something. A borough is not a regional corporation. A regional corporation is a distinct piece of geography that has similar cultural values, similar topographic features, and historically has evolved as an entity for some reason or the other. A borough is largely an urban or semi-urban center where you have a town that wants to get borough status. So the borough of Point Fortin cannot include Labray. If Labray say they want to have their own regional corporation, we could consider that. But you cannot spread the boundaries of the borough of Point Fortin to as far as Labray. It makes no sense because it will take away from the meaning of what a borough is. Well, yes, Capitol, we could look at that because the committee is looking at the boroughs, the boundaries, and you can make specific recommendation as to where you want to see the boundaries.
And I suppose there'll be some work for the Election and Boundaries Commission when it comes to that as well, won't it?
Yeah. We will have to make proposals to the Election and Boundaries Commission.
Hold on 1 minute, sir, because the lady raised quite a number of points, and there's an interesting one that had to do with ongoing contact with burgesses to let them know the progress with respect to works that have already started and so. And I want to go to Mr. Roberts. As a practitioner yourself, how do you see the lady's point about institutionalizing this level of contact?
Well, I think the lady is very correct. And it is one of the changes that we intend to make. I think the Minister spoke to it in his presentation when he talked about the civil society organization. We cannot want to represent people and be separate and apart from the people. So that members of the regional corporation or the boroughs or cities will now have to become more interactive with their burgesses.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, sir, you've been waiting for some time.
Pleasant good night.
Name, please, and go straight into your presentation.
My name is Eric Dan Glade. I live at Captiville Main Road, Point Fortin. The last speaker mentioned some points that I would agree with her very much. And I love the idea of the change that the government is attempting to do where local government is concerned. Because I have been experiencing some real bad, what I call it, I don't know what to call it, with the local government in Point Fortin. I had to cut a road in order to access the property where I built my house. And that road is about 300 to 325 yards long. I was able to put the material on the road, but I could only stop there. And for the past 8 years, I've been going to the council and asking them for assistance just to cover the road because of the rain, coming and destroying the road. Right now, the road, they have a drain is like a river. And all I get is a run around. They don't come and look for you. You have to always go and look for them. You always have to call them. But thanks to the minister who mentioned tonight that I now get to know that they don't have any power. They could only listen to you, but they don't have no power to do anything. So thank you, Mr. Minister. Now that I know that they don't have no power, I'm not going to waste my time anymore going to them. They should have told me that before, right? In terms of paying our taxes, it's a very good idea that we should pay our taxes, and because without tax, no country cannot develop and it cannot run. But I have a concern, and I've been trying to work this out for the longest while. My concern is that I am employed, self-employed. I'm a joiner carpenter. I don't pay taxes. I don't pay INS. And it seems as if the government doesn't mind at all, right? I have to find another way, another means in order to secure my future so that when I can't work again, I have to get by, right? You go to the NIS, and they're telling you that they don't have any provision for people who are self-employed. So what is my position? I have an NIS number, no? I am registered with INS, no? And they're telling me that because I'm self-employed, I can't continue the contributions because I was working elsewhere, right?
Mr. Dangley, can you give it a local government perspective if you can?
Right.
Please.
Okay. So the taxes is a problem. Now, we want to know that if we are going this way of paying taxes, what mechanism, what are you going to put in place for people who are self-employed like me? Okay? Another thing is that I have not heard anything about the churches in the community. What role are the churches, are they going to have some kind of role, important role to be played in the community itself? And also, one of the things I would like to talk about also is the roads. Now we got to get away from this ancient way in how we do roads in our country. There will be a road, a little spot to repair. And councillors will be passing there every day. And it will take them days, weeks, months before they start to repair that road. And when they do repair it, it will be a big hump. Right? So it makes no sense, they repairing the road. What kind of engineers are we having in our country? So we need to work on that. We need to resolve that kind of situation, get away from this old-time method of how they do things, and get real with the business. I saw on the video, the last but not least, I saw on the video there, the lady going to the clinic or the health center. Is every corporation now going to have their own hospital, as the case may be? Right? Or is it that we're going to have a health facility where we'll be able to get first class or standard health care as to what we are getting right now. Thank you very much.
Minister, quite a number of things said there.
Yes, the NIS thing is really outside of our remit. But it's about the third time this came up at the consultation. So I will talk to the Minister of Finance and see what the issues are. You want to pay NIS, but you want to pay tax. So if you pay in tax, you need to form a company and you will become taxable, and then you can take out NIS for yourself. But to just say you are self-employed to go and pay NIS, that is not. But you pay tax, you pay VAT, and you pay other forms of taxation, so you're not outside of the net in particular.
Mr. Roberts?
The issue the gentleman raised with respect to the road, from his presentation, I gather it might have been on private property.
Yeah.
And it is not the responsibility of the corporation to develop private property. But your councillor could make representation on your behalf to the self-help or the Commission of Self-Help to assist you. So maybe you can try talking or making representation to that commission for some assistance.
President, good night. The name is Cuthbert Sandy from New Village. I was very pleased with Minister Khan's presentation because quite a lot of what was shown there were part of my concerns. And so I'm satisfied that the process has started with the proper planning. From what you have said, transforming the system of local government is to ensure that the council gets the strength and capacity to deliver infrastructure and services in a high quality way. But while you have answered quite a lot of my concerns, I still have a few points to raise. I think that this transformation process, quite a lot of factors have to be borne in mind. From what Ms. George said, quite a lot of what I will say in a different way. I think the local leadership need to be strengthened in a big way, ensuring that elected leaders and selected ones have some level of education first to begin. It must be at least a minimum tertiary level. Elected leaders need to be supported to acquire leadership skills. We will need to provide clear guidelines on how councillors and aldermen conduct themselves in council meetings and in their interaction with the community. Ms. George made a good point where that was concerned. Would you imagine that I see councillors who behaving like a greater-than-life attitude? I have heard a councillor say very boastfully, I'm a politician. Yes, that councillor might be a politician, but I would have rather hear, I'm a strong representative of the people. For a simple health matter in my village, after writing the council many times, I have to ask the Minister of Local Government Intervention. Could you imagine that? And now you're saying that you're going to be giving them greater responsibility. I'm glad for that. But we got to know what we're doing. We got to institute tough measures for local leaders who don't do the right thing. This includes suspension or exclusion from office for council members who repeatedly engage in misconduct. You talk about accountability, Minister, and I was very pleased. I suspect that there are inefficiencies and ineffectiveness of the current local government system. We are saying now that we're going to be giving them greater responsibility. So it's therefore imperative to improve accountability. We need to implement a system of council reporting so the community can be fully informed about their council's performance and make comparison with others. Something like an annual Your Council report. There's a need for a well-established performance measurement framework. There'll be need for governance and performance guidelines. You alluded to that, Minister. There must be clear guidelines for community engagement. There must be a role for village councils. All right? So I wouldn't stay very much longer. I have plenty, but I need to give other people a chance.
And you can always come back.
So we need to see the seriousness in that devolution of power to local government. Yes, since 1965, that was on the table. I was 12 years old. From what you have said, I see there is some bit of seriousness. But when I say seriousness, I mean improve business processes, which you alluded to. By seriousness, I mean building of local government from the community level. Now, restructuring of local government, really, as I said, has been here for a long time. If you are really serious, I'll be a happy man.
Thank you very much. Some very thoughtful remarks, Minister.
I just want to make a comment on the first point you made. We are giving autonomy, empowerment, greater responsibility. Obviously, full-time councillors. So autonomy and full-time councillors. We obviously will need to reprofile the representative. That is now under the system of governance that we operate under. That will now be the function of the political parties to offer you the right type of candidate. So any responsible party in their screening exercise now will have to look for the quality of candidates to represent you at that level. And then obviously you will have a choice in terms of the candidates. But let me just caution you about this tertiary level education thing. This is a democracy. And anybody, once you are a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago, over the age of 18, without a police record, is entitled to seek public office. You cannot put barriers on that. You cannot say a councillor must have tertiary education. That is a non-starter to start with. Anybody, 18 years, citizen of Trinidad and Tobago, without a police record, can seek public office. And ladies and gentlemen, some of the best representatives that this country has ever seen has been people without tertiary level education.
Now, Minister, you raised the issue of continuing
and let me
accountability.
just finish. And two pioneers in local government, and who still are shining light today, is Kamaluddin Mohammed and Jarrett Narain. And both of them came from the local government system and established themselves and distinguished themselves in the governance of Trinidad and Tobago. Jarrett Narain was supposed to be on the technical committee. The cabinet had approved his name, but unfortunately he's not well, and he declined the offer. Yes. Kamaluddin Mohammed started as a councillor in Sawa. He was elevated to the highest level. He acted as Prime Minister on several occasions under the Williams government. So good people can come out of local government, not necessarily having a tertiary education. But having said that, your issue of training, I think is well received, and certain programs could be put in place to train the councillors when they are elected. But we cannot put that as a precondition for election.
Systems of accountability to keep the representatives on their toes.
Well, the accountability aspect, in my view, is really financial accountability in terms of how you spend the state money. On the political side, you go and ask for your burgesses to vote for you. They voted for you. We can legislate how you will account back to your burgesses. Any councillor worth their salt must develop systems in which they report back to the burgesses, whether it's a quarterly town meeting to say, this is what I have done over the last 3 months, or a biannual meeting, or something like that. But that is an aspect that it will be difficult to legislate.
Good night, Mr. Minister, members of the head table. Good night, sir. I stand here a bit concerned about some of the remarks. The first thing I'm dealing with is the Point Fortin Corporation. My name is Andrew Abraham. I live at Clifton Hill, Point Fortin. I'm a burgess of Point Fortin. And firstly, I must say that Point Fortin Council has made many firsts in local government in Trinidad and Tobago, and we are proud of that. We have the youngest council in Trinidad and Tobago with the most experienced mayor in Trinidad and Tobago, 30 years of local government under his belt. And we have to realize, Borode coming just now, and you know the whole of Trinidad and Tobago coming to Point Fortin for Borode? You know people traveling from abroad to come for Borode? We have situations that what I would call
spot situations. I operate in an oil company, and don't believe material, etc., will be on time, no matter how efficient you are. Don't believe you're going to get efficiency in any system. You'll have inefficiency. So on behalf, as a Burgess of Point Fortin, I personally want to congratulate the mayor of Point Fortin and these young council. We have the youngest councilors. Stand up, let the people see you all. You understand? Stand up. You all don't want to stand up? Stand
Yes,
up.
please.
You understand? We are proud of them. You understand? We are proud of them, and they are delivering. Right? I am proud of them. I have a sister living in Tunapuna, and I just go in the market in Tunapuna. I have a brother living in Marabella. I just go in the market in Marabella. And Point Fortin is the cleanest borough in Trinidad and Tobago. No maybe or perhaps about that. That is just the first thing. Mr. Minister, you made a statement a while ago pertaining to charting a new way forward. I have heard over and over, for over 20 years now, people coming and repeating, they're using big words, transformation, all these things. And we have not executed. That is not since 1986, I just said. So I hope in God's name that we execute in this situation. In this situation. I said again, I live right in Point here. And the issue of security is dear to my heart. I listened carefully when you said that the little 2 or 3 little situations, but the corporations need to have some influence in the police station that it is located in. Everybody know in the different areas who's selling what and who's selling what. I had 3 break-ins by me. And you know what? The police took 3 hours to respond in 2 occasions. So therefore, I want you to consider security as a very, very, very serious issue. A very, very serious issue. A burning issue. A burning issue. Because after those break-ins, I wasn't able to sleep properly. You understand? And security, according to Maslow's philosophy, after you gain everything, you want to sleep peacefully. Security is a must. Security is a must. And I want that local government have to have an input in that. You cannot have a police station there where the mayor doesn't know who is the man in charge of the station. That has to fall under the ambit of local government if we are to be an effective society. The other thing that I want to talk about, in this age that we're living in, artificial intelligence is speeding. You could put things in place and have predictabilities. Artificial intelligence. I don't have to leave Point to go San Fernando to get a birth certificate. I must be able to get that here. We can network that. We must network that. And the last thing I want to deal with is the issue of, you yourself made a statement there about the hydrocarbon, that Point Fortin is not time bomb. But more so, we're not recognizing that the council, real governance starts from the bottom. And those councillors have a hard job to do. A very difficult job. Sometimes with the little pittance they get in, you understand, they have the workload is 18 hours, right? What I would like you to know, the proof in the pudding is allocating adequate resources to these councillors. Put it, adequate resources. You cannot do so and want them to produce and they're not beefed up to perform. If you do so and you want a horse to win a race, you have to have a program. So you have to have a program for excellence. A program for excellence. Not structural program, you know. There's 2 different programs. There's the structural program and then there's the functional intelligence program. And last of all, pertaining to Point, you see where we have this hydrocarbon here? Medical surveillance have to fall under local government. It is a point that has been missed all over. Medical surveillance means that your burgess, if you are living in a hydrocarbon environment, must be able to get free medical examination every 6 months to know where their health, where they are going, because we are breathing in the atmosphere. And down here with this LNG, all over, the pollution in the atmosphere. Pollution in the atmosphere throughout Trinidad is a very serious issue. A very, very serious issue. And the energy index for Trinidad has not been done. Local government must get an input into that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Abraham.
Very briefly, I know you covered a lot of points, but I'll just handle them very quickly. I didn't spend much time on policing, but part of the transformation is we staffing each corporation with 100 municipal officers. Myself and the Minister of National Security is working in tandem with that, and that is one of the areas of the transformation that will be implemented well before the legislative agenda. In terms of national security, Point Fortin should consider themselves fortunate that the Minister of National Security is your member of parliament, so you should be free to speak to him on those matters. With regard health, as we speak, health would not form part of the local government reform process. Health still falls with the Ministry of Health, and in particular, the regional health authorities. Well, let me just make a statement on the regional health authorities. Do you know, when the Regional Health Authority was formed by Mr. John Eckstein, he was the then Minister of Health, it was the intention that the RHA would be a devolution of power from the Ministry of Health. And the Ministry of Health was just supposed to remain as a policy ministry. It never happened. That is why we say we disbanded the Ministry of Local Government, because once you keep the Ministry of Local Government, the Ministry of Local Government will find a way to take back the power from the regional corporations. And that is what happened with the RHAs. The RHAs was supposed to be a devolved system with the 5 or 6 RHAs that will be handling in an autonomous way the health functions of the region. It never happened. And finally, let me just share this. I shared it at another consultation. Because I still get this undercurrent at all the consultation that, yeah, we hear better horse than that bury, and what have you, and it wouldn't happen. Okay? Because a lot of times we spoke about it from, since what gentleman said here, since 1968 to now, we're talking about local government reform. The point I made when I was making my presentation, there must be buy-in at the top. And let me just share a little experience with you all. I said it at a recent consultation. We aborted this rapid rail mass transit system. But when we got the presentation from the IDB, they had looked at a lot of Latin American countries as to where the system operated first. But the IDB people told us that the country that has installed a subway system in the fastest possible time, of 4 years, from conceptualization to the first train leaving the station, was Panama. 4 years, London, New York, Houston, Paris, nobody ever broke that record. 4 years, the Panamanians implemented a subway system in Panama City. You know why? He said, because it had a personal endorsement of the president. He said the project manager for the subway in Panama City, after the 4 years when they cut the ribbon for the first train to flow, told the audience that in 4 years' time, every time he called the president, there wasn't one instance when the president didn't answer the phone. And he said, I called him pretty regular, to tell you that if you have the best way to have a project implemented is to have buy-in from the leader. Ladies and gentlemen, local government reform has the total buy-in of the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago.
Mr. Bertrand.
Yes, good evening. I'm Francis Bertrand, all the members of the head table. I just want to start just briefly on the business of security. I want to commend the Minister for this initiative and to say that we have been through several of these. So I will describe myself as a skeptical optimist. I hope it happened, but I think this time around I'm getting a different feeling. On the issue of security, one of the things we mentioned in local government was to empower the corporations with 100 municipal police. And then there was also an issue of the municipal police and the reporting structure to the Commissioner of Police. Now, while that sounds good, my experience in local government is that because the municipal police, to some extent, was accountable to the council, we had certainly greater accountabilities. Because if we look at the performance of the police now with the less than 5% detection rate, and we put 1,400 municipal police within that structure, I'm not too sure that the people themselves would get the kind of satisfaction. We want the municipal police, like in the US, the mayor is the CEO, he has financial and administrative authority. So we know when a municipal activity takes place, we know we go into the mayor to deal with that, and he or she is accountable. I think that is something that needs to be looked at. To make this system work, I think administrative clarity has to be developed. In terms of, while in Point Fortin, I think we're fortunate, we have a hardworking CEO and administration team, but we speak in general. In terms of the role of the CEO in this whole thing, who is the CEO accountable to? What is the administrative and financial responsibility of the mayor? Because many of us from private enterprise know if you have a corporation where the chairman of the board is here, but the CEO is not accountable to the chairman of the board, that system definitely not going to work. And that is a fundamental issue that has not been addressed in all these consultations. We talk all around it, but the council who is elected, we have to fix it, that the CEO, the administration is accountable to the council, and the people would be the one to be the final arbiters in that scenario. In terms of representation, we can't legislate that. That is an innate thing. And we have had experience in Point Fortin where we had excellent councillors. Alexis, Colley, Melville, Hagley. These guys came from the ground and they really worked with the people. But what is important though, when we're talking about the young professionals that come in the system, we should have a mechanism of empowering them in terms of let them understand the system they're coming into. We used to have a diploma in local government at some point through the Association of Local Government. And I think while it's a formal thing, but as a prerequisite, people coming into local government must understand that. You take an accountant from the private sector, as good as he or she, and put them in local government, you have problems. So that human resource capacity development is something which we need to pay attention to in order to achieve all these goals that we subscribe. But all in all, I think we've done well in Point Fortin. Certainly there's room to do better. But I think that administrative link in the overall structure is something that we kind of talk around. It must happen. And then finally, on the issue of the boundaries, that is something in Point Fortin that is near and dear to us. And I cannot understand how Mora, which is right across the road there, is part of Superior Corporation. The people of Mora, they come to Point Fortin for the market, they come to Point Fortin for everything. I mean, when the garbage truck passes on one side of the road, they move the garbage there to get it collected because the borough provides a better service. And Mora is a bastard community in Point Fortin, so it has to be part of the Point Fortin Borough Council. And the demographics mustn't be based on just electoral numbers. It's the community where you gravitate. Use a simple rule, which market you go to, where you go and do your business. If you go to Point Fortin, then, you know, that's where you should be, your services should be provided from. So I think with those issues being addressed, the administrative one in particular, and I think we're well on our way because we're going to hold you to the pledges that you made here, the presentation and everything. And I would want to get a specific role for the Association of Local Government. I think they should be leading in this process, and I see the chairman is up there at this point. But we could have buy-in from all these community levels, but the association as a body has to be an important part of the implementation. So I want to commend the minister for the presentation, and we're hoping that certainly in Point Fortin, we would work with you. A lot of these things you're talking about already here, you know, the question of law. The mayor is the chief magistrate, and under the current act, the police, who in charge of the police has to report to the mayor on a quarterly basis on crime. We don't do it, we used to do it at one time. He or she has to report to the mayor on crime. A lot of the areas you mentioned is already in the act, but it hasn't been implemented. So I think we can make a difference now, and let's do this. Let's do this.
Thank you, Mr. Bertrand.
Mr. Bertrand, I mean, most of what you said, you're pushing against an open door here. I mean, it was very well received, but just a point of clarity on the municipal police. As today reporting to the CEO, we're still looking at that, the Minister of National Security and myself, but I just want to make the point that you cannot have police officers with license to carry firearms, to uphold the Constitution and the law. There's also the potential of misbehavior. They have to come under the jurisdiction of the Police Service Commission, and in particular, the Police Complaints Authority. Because the system is in place for national officers. So look, the Police Complaints Authority has a file so high investigating police officers. If a municipal police misbehave, there's no administrative structure in place to deal with him, And the potential for misbehavior is also very high there. So when we bring in 1,400 new officers, you have to have a command chain. And on the face of it, I'm no security expert, but in my humble view, and I know the Minister of National Security shares that view, the command chain must end at the Commissioner of Police.
Thank you, Minister. Madam.
A special good evening to everyone present here. My name is Susan Sinanan Ganes. I have taught at this school, this Point Fortin Secondary School, for the last 25 years. I am a retired teacher since 2009, but I am also working with 3 NGOs. I am an ambassador for World Peace with the Universal Peace Federation, Family Federation for World Peace, and the Interreligious International Family Federation for World Peace. Now, my mission is not as vociferous as in the community, but I am here as a voice for the youths. And I am very proud to say that I have lived in this borough for the past 35 years. And I am a proud burgess of Clifton Hill. And I was very, very happy to hear the word transformation. And as the minister said, transformation is the most difficult thing. Change is the most difficult thing for us as adults, far less for the youths. And it's hard to come by. But I love what you said about the Ministry of, the Ministry of Rural Development, where we will get into all the rural communities as far down as Icarcus and Fullerton and Granville and Chatham and so on. And when that paradigm shift is made, I hope that it will be a cultural shift throughout this country for change of attitudes in we as adults also. The former speaker, Councillor Abraham, complimented the councillors and so on. I want to say very, very vociferously now that working for 25 years here and working with the past maybe 3 or 4 mayors and the corporation and the CEOs, we have had no trouble. Every single project we did at this school, whether it was a rally, whether it was public speaking, whether it was workshops, whatever, the mayors, the past mayors, the present mayor, and the present CEO have assisted us. Even for this borough corporation coming up, the borough day coming up, the present CEO has extended her arm to Siparia Senior Sec, Palo Seco Senior Sec, Penal Holy Name Convent. We have gone on with cultural programs for all the youths in the 5 secondary schools from Point Fortin way down to Cedras, and also the 14 secondary schools. My take today, this afternoon, is to let my voice be heard that as an ambassador for world peace in communities, the program is really developing communities, as the minister said. Now, this does not really concern local government, but as you say, I am just quoting that you said that the borough is vested with the responsibility for the transformation process in schools. And what I am saying is that if the borough will be responsible, I feel certain that for the 14 primary schools, and we have about 20 early childhood care, and the 5 secondary schools. The Ministry of National Security is looking after in a collaborative effort with the Ministry of Education for resolving youth conflict and violence in the nation's schools. And I would like to say that that process to be vested in the Point Fortin Borough for these schools, I volunteer my services, because over the last 5 years, the program that we were doing in 120 schools, it was abandoned. And that program was resolving youth conflict and violence in the 21st century. And when I did a research paper on Morva Lavantil and presented to, when we had Chogam, and then United Nations sent me to South Korea in 2010 and 2012. 153 world leaders with communities are running with the program. I came back, and over the 5 years, we have been working in Grenada, Antigua, the Caribbean islands. Have you heard about any bullying and violence and guns and so on? But over the last 5 years, successful programs, we had it in 120 schools, successful programs are not sustained. So I am saying today, Madam CEO, and I don't know how long again the mayor has, but for us to have peaceful, you're talking about local government and communities. For us to have peaceful communities, we need peaceful schools. And peaceful schools will impact on peaceful communities, and then we will impact on a peaceful nation. And that's the only way I know it, because it's working in the Caribbean. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Especially to Mr. Khan. It's nice seeing you in Point Fortin. My name is Jean Cave Alexander. My voice tonight is for the poor and needy of Point Fortin. A lot has been said about all the nice things that we're going to do, and we look forward to it. But I heard nothing about housing. Housing is a major problem in Point Fortin. Housing is linked to bullying, children in school. Housing is linked to crime. When you have children, they're not properly housed. You have houses in Point Fortin, 5 children, a father and a mother, in a 1-bedroom apartment. And all these problems affect our children. They show the manner in which they show their displeasure. It's reflected in schools by bullying. And from bullying, it's continued on to crime. We are supposed to look at the Tobago example. When you look at the Tobago example, you see the HDC going into Tobago and doing housing. Right now in Point Fortin, there are few houses to be given out by the HDC. But when you go into our MP's office, you will find he has their applications, maybe about 300-400 applications for housing. What is to happen to Point Fortin? We cannot hope to have a very effective transformation with all the nice things that you're talking about, and housing is left out completely. Housing must be part of it for the poor and the needy. At one school, where Mr. Trotman here is the principal, he has 500 children at his school. EC school, over 500. I'm talking about primary school, not secondary schools. At the intermediate school, I'm sure they have maybe about 200 to 300 there. Now, what is to happen to housing in Point Fortin? Something must happen. If it doesn't happen in housing, no other plan is going to work successfully.
Okay, thank you very much. But let's hear from the minister.
I have one point to make again.
Sure.
Because I have a suggestion. Point Fortin is the home of self-help housing. Point Fortin is the home of it. Eric Williams brought self-help to Point Fortin. And I'm sure we will not want to wait on the HDC to come at some point in time and say, well, okay, land is available here for a few houses. Bring us back to self-help housing in Point Fortin. When you give us back self-help housing in Point Fortin, houses will be built at a rate where we will see most of those applications being fulfilled and a better life for the citizens of Point Fortin. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, the lady was quite articulate on housing. It's just regretfully housing not part of the remit of local government reform. But having said that, let me just make a quick statement on housing. The government cannot provide public housing to all the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. And there is a survey now that is available. It's not public as yet. But on the poverty report that I spoke about, do you know that 83% of Tobagonians, 83% of Tobagonians own their own houses? The HDC has very little housing stock in Tobago. HDC has very little housing stock in Tobago. And 83% of Tobagonians own their own homes. That is a cultural thing. Okay? And what we have to do as a people, granted the state will provide housing through the National Housing Authority. But at the end of the day, your main focus in life when you become a professional, when you come and think, is to acquire your own home. And the state will have to provide some assistance for needy families. But it is not the responsibility of the state to provide housing to all its citizens. That is the hard reality of the truth.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
No, I just get real vexed something, eh? And Mr. Minister, no disrespect meant.
Can you give us your name first, please?
Buzz. Just Buzz.
Buzz. Okay.
Right. No disrespect meant, but I'm not saying good night at this time.
All right.
All right? To you and your team. I have never been so ashamed in my life. Never. As Carnival won. Carnival won. The borough council in charge of Carnival in Point, you know. I limped down the road Juve morning and could I see the next round about nothing in Point, nothing. And the national body gave Point $250,000. And if you see what Point had, and that ain't happening now, you know. That thing happening over 4 or 5 years now. And we're talking about transformation and reform. I am hoping that in the transformation and the reform, we have put it back. I want we to transform it and transport it out of the hands of the borough. Otherwise, Point Fortin in real trouble culturally. You're here talking and boasting about Borough Day. I love Borough Day. It's nice and everything. But then we cannot separate, we must separate Borough Day from Carnival. Carnival is a national festival, yet Point Fortin has none. All right? People leave Point in droves. In droves to go to a little fishing village in Cedras. People leaving and going that way. Something had to be wrong with that. And here now, the councillors are ashamed, you know. The mayor is ashamed, you know. And something have to be wrong with that. Yes, oh God, I like my carnival, I like a little bacchanal thing, but oh God, give me something, we're getting nothing.
So
nothing.
Buzz, since we're focusing on recommendations here.
No,
but what I'm saying is that you're making the point about these festivities and so on.
Yeah.
How would you propose that a local government system would promote, monetize, popularize these activities outside of receiving a subvention from the government or from the National Carnival Commission?
Well, listen, it's one thing to do. And I said it, you know. Bring it back in the hands of the people.
Okay.
Bring it in the hands of the people. All right? We had it before. It wasn't no council running it. Mr. Rogers wasn't the chairman. All right? Wasn't no borough and all kind of thing like that. And we had good carnival. We got a borough now. When the carnival should be better, and it was.
Okay. That's your other points.
So my
two
other
points.
point is this.
2 points.
Mr. Minister, you spoke about taxes. And right away in my mind, accountability came into thing. And I wonder, with the change, how are you all going to collect land and building taxes in Point? Because Point Fortin has one of the biggest squatting areas in Trinidad and Tobago, Right? How you collecting them tax? And to make it worse, those areas are facilitated by the borough, because there's drop material to help them build road and things like that, So I know what's going on with that. Even coming back again too. You see when we have festivals and things, and we give money, I want to agree with one of the speakers there that after we keep a town meeting and let the people we put in charge give an account of how the money is spent. I don't want, at the end of the year, because it's a cook the books. All right? I want to go and ask questions. How much money was spent on entertainment? How much drinks all they buy? How much food all they buy? And why it costs so much? Right? And big bucks at KFC and all kind of entrepreneurs and the players and the stakeholders not getting what they deserve. Right? And I'm going to put on my glasses. As I get hold my eye getting them.
No, go right along. Just try to be brief, though, with the points.
All right. My partner here, Mr. Trotman, I'm a personal friend, is the principal at Egypt School. You know that man right to the borough to get 2 humps in front of the school. It take 2 years, a year a hump. A year a hump. A hump a year a hump. Whatever. All right, 2 years. It's only when a child nearly dead, he get 1. After 2 years, he get 1. All right? And the people in the borough moving like, he's supposed to be glad that he get 1. No, oh God, give me a break now, man. Oh, yeah, man. Now, I want to bring up GVC, because I talk about the school maintenance. But I think we should carry the intervention of local government further than just maintenance. Because we must have a local body looking out for the schools in Point. The Ministry of Education are doing it. We have a school like GVC. That is a prestige thing, Chinkit, the last mayor, not the last mayor, the president, is Maxwell. All the fellas came from, Ken Julian, all the fellas came from GVC. Yet today, and that's the government vocational center, yet today, that school is suffering greatly from a lack of teachers. The place is being run down, and we're supposed to be in an industrial area. How are we going to fill vacancies if we don't spend money and allocate time and resources to GVC? And I will give other speakers a chat. I like my thing, I could talk all night,
Yeah.
But I'll give other speakers time. And at this time, Mr. Minister and your team, pleasant good night.
Thank you very much, Buzz.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. I mean, you're very emotional, which means that you have a strong belief system in what you have spoken about, and I think your comments were well received.
Okay, my name is Sean Nicholson, and
Sean?
I am from Nicholson.
Nicholson, yes.
I am from Teacher Village. Thus far in the discussion, we've been speaking about city corporation, regional corporation, borough corporations, and so on. But I want to make a plug-in for village councils. Village councils, in my view, having served for 1 term as president of my village council, is a very integral part of building community. We can't talk local government without empowering village councils. Whether it be through direct relationships, because the indirect ones not working. We can't have a village putting on an event and the borough competing with a village. That's madness. That's madness.
we need to, as part of, and which should include legislation, look at a formal relationship between village councils, which are the bodies that literally work on the ground, as well as with the new local government system that, that is being spoken of to be implemented.
Very quickly, how do you see that working? Is there some kind of, what would form that connection institutionally? Is there something that needs to be put in place?
I would say that there needs to be a formal relationship, which also should include funding. Because currently, we have too many dilapidated community centers because the local government doesn't have oversight, and literally nobody has responsibility for other than community development, which you write to millions of times and they don't get a response. So that some form of formal, and as you said, the relationship ought to be looked at in terms of legislation as well to ensure that it's clearly enshrined in terms of how the local government body will interact with village councils to ensure that things get done within communities. I also wanted to ask that in terms of old age homes, and children homes, be also included under that local government body, so that they would also have some oversight in that regard. And I will leave the other comments to others.
Thank you very much. The Minister?
I mean, his points are well taken because, for example, every time we speak, there always seems to be a credible case to add more things to local government. As a matter of fact, every time the Prime Minister speaks, he adds something new. Recently, at a function, he indicated that he would like to see the maintenance and the management of community centers fall under local government. Your point that there has to be a direct nexus between village councils and borough councils or municipal corporation makes sense. But what I want to guard against is that we don't want to bite more than we can chew. We have a present schedule of responsibilities for local government. We're trying to expand the portfolio, and local government in itself has its inherent challenges in terms of its capabilities, its structure, its administration. So we want to widen the circumference to the point where we think it is manageable, and don't start to put everything into that basket and let the basket becomes unmanageable. So while your point makes sense, as we speak, we don't want to overpopulate the schedule of new responsibilities to local government.
Sir, very quickly,
Good night
please.
to the panel. I want to find out one thing. We're speaking about local government in Point Fortin. The people of Point Fortin concerned under the local government, how would we deal, or how would the people of Point Fortin deal with the taxes from the big administration? Does the people have any say from the burgesses?
You mean from the budgeting of the
budgeting
corporation?
What say would the people have offered?
In terms of allocating?
In terms of locating expenditure.
Okay.
And how would the tax from the big local government, it would go to the general government, or if it would deal with the local government level?
Yeah.
And how it would distribute back to it would distribute to the town clerk or whosoever, or the people.
Thank you very much, sir.
I mean, that's a very, very valid point. I'm sorry Minister Young is not here, but he's one of the persons who have been articulating that position at this consultation, and it is his thinking that part of the legislation will include that before you make your budget, you have to consult. So in other words, the corporation wouldn't just prepare a budget and send it to the Minister of Finance. Just as how the THA is entitled to consult before they present their budget for the people of Tobago, we are contemplating as part of the legislative agenda where the corporation has to consult their budgets with their proposals for a budget before it comes to the Minister of Finance. So it is a very, very well made out point.
And he had the question of where the revenues go.
No, the revenue will go into we will amend the law so that the corporation can have accounts. As we speak, there's only one account to the government, That's the consolidated fund. The government is not entitled in law to have no more accounts. But we will amend the laws where they will have 14 other accounts where these monies could be collected.
Thank you, Minister. Yes, sir.
Good night, everyone. Daniel George is my name. First, I must say, I admire how this chairperson is making sure that all the points are being addressed, and I haven't seen much of that in past times. I want to say concerning the disaster management unit in Point Fortin, I will talk about any local government minister who really following up disaster management unit will know that Point Fortin have the best, the most productive disaster management unit, right? And if it is, we have good staff and all that for the disaster management unit, but the staff is not enough. I went to the disaster management unit in San Fernando. They have a whole big upstairs for themselves, and they have these staffing point choke up in a little room by the town hall, right? So my wife and my 2 daughters, all 3 of them have asthma. They had to leave here, and probably with the passion that the members of the disaster management unit have, if it had more persons, that smoke could have been addressed, in spite of the fact that it only have 1 or 2 fire stations that might be quite probably in Supavia or Cedros, right? So I think that better could be done in that aspect. And the last thing that I want to say, I want to ask about the consultation process. Is it that we just come here tonight, we complain or we suggest, and then we don't have an opportunity to come back and meet with you all to go in a more fine depth into what we spoke about, so we will have an idea if our suggestions are going to be used, if we and all could reconsider based on recommendations. So this one-off consultation thing, which most of the times doesn't be a consultation, it does just be a presentation, because all they don't have all the thing in all their mind, what all they want to do, and after that, all they just make us come and mama guy ourselves and other people who listening, and that is it. Thanks very much.
Minister? The mama guy thing is not on. As a matter of fact, this is the most widespread consultation this country has ever had. It is 14 consultations. It's not an easy thing to put in 14 consultations like this throughout Trinidad and Tobago. And it is still our attention. After we finish the 14 consultation in Diego Martin next week, we will be drafting a policy paper on local government reform, which will be the driver to draft the legislation. When we finish the policy paper and the legislation, we will hold 2 other consultations, one in North, one in South, and be specific now and say, this is our policy position, it will be published. This is the draft legislation. We need your final comments, speak now or forever, hold your peace. And then we will table it in Parliament. I mean, that is as the most consultation you will ever have. Otherwise, we start to get diminishing returns.
The final word goes to this lady.
Good evening, everyone. Tiffany George from Community-Based Action Group. Right. I just want to raise 2 concerns. First, I'm welcoming the idea of employment exchange, because I have 2 masters and I'm unemployed, and I would like to know if the process could actually be expedited, because it's a couple months now, I have been unemployed, and it is very hard knowing that I studied in Trinidad and abroad, and I don't have a job. Second, I also want to suggest, if when you're doing the different transformation process, if you all could also implement a youth restorative programs for all communities, because when I look at the situation of crime within the country, it is always good to look at youths from the young age, from pre-adolescent, adolescent, and into adulthood. If we could have programs which would actually facilitate them through this process.
Thank you very much. And because you are so good, this gentleman who really wanted to speak, very quickly, please.
Quickly, Mr. Neptune from Mahaica. 2 things I want to address is the roads. You pave them and you dig them up after. Is there some process that we can have a system in place where the piping could be on one side and avoid doing that? And the next thing is land regulation. People building houses on land and then it's falling down. Could you address that, please?
Thank you very much for that, sir.
Before I wrap up, after Ms. Bascom and Mr. Roberts. You know, it pains my heart anytime I see a young person who is so well qualified, who have studied long and hard, whose parents has invested so much cash and effort in gaining an education, coming to a forum like this saying that it's unemployed. As a member of the government, as a minister, as a cabinet, it is not a nice place to be in. However, the government is trying its best to revamp the economy, to create space, as the point I made. We want to create space for the young people. I mean, there's such proliferation of tertiary education now. You know, it's very, very competitive. To give you my own experience, when in the days when I graduated as a geologist from the University of the West Indies in Mona, Jamaica, before you graduate, Texaco, Trinidad, and Tussauds used to come to Jamaica to beg you to come and work for them, you know. The three companies competing against each other and offering you more salary, so you actually got a job before you sat your final exams. Things has changed tremendously now. There's a downturn and what have you. But keep the faith there and things will work out. The employment exchange will come into place and the economy will start to boom. What are you qualified in? Public sector management and?
Public health.
Public health. Well, public health could find a space in the regional corporations, hopefully, okay? Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Wrap-up comment from Mr. Roberts, and I'm not forgetting you on the village council.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gibbings. I know that you pointed me in that direction. The village councils, and I want to put them alongside the other civil society organizations. The women's group, the children's or young youth groups, and other organizations like that within the community. It is my view that there is a link to local governance. Any serious representative must develop a relationship with these organizations. As a matter of fact, politics is about people. And it would make sense for the representatives to have a relationship with persons within the communities, so that you cannot divorce the village council and the other civil society organization from local government. There are a number of issues that we have heard this evening, and I want to give the assurance that we are going to consider them as we develop the policy for the transformation of local government. But one of the issues I have been taking up at these consultations is the issue of it just slipped me. It's the issue where we deal with people's performance.
Oh, yeah. Productivity.
Productivity, the issue of productivity. It is a sore point. We must accept that the kind of performance that we expect in local government, and the point was made here this evening, is not what it should be. But I want to also say to the people who are present here this evening that you too have a responsibility to assist in making that change in the local government system. The people who work in the corporation come from homes. They come from within the bowels of your community. So that you, as members of the community, must be able to interact with them and to help to change the culture that we now have in the local government. So we expect that kind of collaboration from you as we develop the new system of local government in Trinidad.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. Ms. Bascom?
Okay, good night, everyone. We had a lot of wonderful suggestions coming out of this consultation. I'd just like to touch on a few points. One of my former ministers, Minister Dillon would know who I'm referring to, always said institutions must be built to last. That is why we will not wait till 2 years have elapsed and suddenly realize that we need to build capacity within the regional corporations. We are going to begin immediately. In fact, we were speaking with one of the professors at the University of the West Indies to conduct a program for us this July, August on ethics, transparency, and corruption in the public service. Once I have the funding, we propose that most of the employees of our ministry, both at head office and in the regional corporations, are exposed to this program. So what I'm suggesting is building capacity from now, not 2 years when local government reform is upon us. We are also looking at liaison with the Ministry of Public Administration and Communications to develop a scholarship program to staff the corporations with the required skills that Minister alluded to earlier. In that way, we are planning in advance. Another topic I heard tonight, which is very interesting, is the relationship between the council and the administrators. There are quick wins which we could do right now. The CEO has a role to play, and the mayor has a role to play. In other corporations, the chairman has a role to play. They each play an important role. That former minister who Mr. Dillon will remember also spoke about role clarity. The CEO is the accounting officer, and the chairman would set policies. So I'm encouraging you, do not wait till 2 years have elapsed to suddenly begin to build a relationship at the executive of the council. You can start from now, similar to the relationship that Minister and I have. As PS, I have a role as accounting officer, and he's the policy maker. And with communication and dialogue, we get the job done. In fact, this is the 11th of 14 consultations. And together with my high-performing task force on transition in local government, we will get this done, and it will not be a talk shop.
Thank you, Ms. Bascom. Finally, Mr. Minister.
Yeah, well, Burgesses of Point Fortin, it was a pleasure being here. This is our 11th consultation. We have had some very profound contributions from the floor. Everything you said has been pre-recorded, has been documented, it will be transcribed, and we read every single statement in every single consultation. The information will be distilled, it will be compiled, it will be debated on, it will be discussed, it will be critiqued, it will be analyzed. And when we come with a final product, it is not only what I presented there, but some of what I presented will change. It will really be a distillation of the good ideas that has come from the floor. Okay, and finally, in closing, I know a lot of times we speak of what doesn't happen and where we are short of and what have you. But I want to go on record today, and I'm probably stepping out of my crease here, to say that personally, I think Point Fortin Borough Corporation was one of the best run corporations in all of Trinidad and Tobago. Because Point Fortin as a borough has distinct advantages. It has geographic distinctiveness. It has a cultural distinctiveness. It has in fact, I make no fear of this. It has the most patriotic set of burgesses in all of Trinidad and Tobago. When I was MP for Ottawa Mayaro, I used to tell the people of Mayaro, try to be like Point. Because to me, there's no community in Trinidad and Tobago where the people who reside in the community love their community as the way Point Fortin people like Point Fortin. I really feel strongly about that. I think one of the people on the floor said Point Fortin is by far the cleanest borough, and it is. Okay? So in other words, if we use Tobago as a yardstick, the borough that resembles Tobago the most is Point Fortin. And really and truly, you all can build on that. I know there's a lot of ways to go still. You have one of the youngest council, as one of the spokesperson said, the youngest council that you have. I mean, the youth level of the council is a function of the People's National Movement. But having said that, it really says a lot for the people of Point Fortin. You have patriotic burgesses, you have cultural distinctiveness, geographic distinctiveness, and most importantly, you have a solid economic base. Few cities can say that. Port of Spain is dying, San Fernando is challenged, Chaguanas is booming. But as we speak, Point Fortin has a solid economic base, and let me just warn you, you cannot be a mono-economic base. You cannot depend on one industry to survive, because your industry will suffer shocks. As you have a Minister of Energy who's just your neighbor. She just came back from our OPEC meeting. There's major price shocks that is hitting the energy sector, both in oil and in gas. So while the national economy has a challenge to diversify, Point Fortin also has that challenge. And Point Fortin cannot wish the days of Shell could come back. The days of Shell could never come back to Point Fortin. You now have Atlantic LNG, and you have Petrotrin, and you have Trinma. Trinma has potential, which has to be developed through Petrotrin or some other alternative. But most importantly, I challenge the people of Point Fortin, you have to get into agriculture and agro-processing. Okay, you have PSAEL, you have a lot of agricultural lands that belongs to Petrotrin. You have to start to engage in agriculture in a serious way, because one of the things about the energy sector is that it is not labor intensive. Okay, it employs a very, very limited amount of people. Okay, so while it will bring some economic activity to the town, it cannot be an engine for employment. Okay, so as a borough, you have your challenges. You're fortunate, unlike most of the other corporations, that you have a solid economic base. You have a very patriotic Burgess population. And a lot of things are going for you with this local government reform exercise. You'll be more empowered to deliver the services that the people need. The highway will be coming to Point Fortin. That is a major, major piece of development, because it will now bring Point Fortin accessible to the rest of Trinidad and Tobago. And the highway will be completed hopefully in about a year and a half, and the highway will be a freeway. And let me just explain something on this highway, because I'm in Point. There are two components of the highway. From Golconda to Davie, to Penal, to Siparia, onward to the Mondesi interchange, and coming into La Brea and Point Fortin. That is the freeway, and that is really the true highway. What is happening on the South Trong Road and Mosquito Creek is just an upgrade to the arterial road, because that road will still have traffic lights and signalization. So you'll still have the Gulf City traffic light, you'll still have the Bamboo Junction traffic light, you will still have a traffic light in La Robine by St. Benedict's, one by by Price Smart, and you come down to what used to be TJ's, now it's Paria Suites. So that access will really be for San Fernandans who want to come to Point Fortin, will take that road. But the freeway will be coming straight through Davie, Penal, into the Mondesi Junction. So that Point Fortin now will be from Golconda to Point Fortin will be 20-25 minutes. Okay? And ladies and gentlemen, there's nothing to develop a community than infrastructure and accessibility and connectivity. So Point Fortin has a very, very bright future, both from your industries, both from that highway that will be coming to Point Fortin. And I think all things being equal, you have an extremely bright future here in Point Fortin. You have a very resilient population. You have a very educated population. I was telling your MP the other day that I had seen a report some years ago, but it's probably got even better than that, that Point Fortin had the most university graduates per capita than any other town in Trinidad and Tobago. Good? And there are a lot of sociological consequences to that. And really and truly, some of the finest minds in Trinidad, in a lot of avenues and areas of expertise, and in particular the energy sector, are people from Point Fortin. Okay, so Point Fortin should feel proud of its history and its accomplishment. So I want to leave you with those words of positivity. I thank you for hosting us here tonight, and it was a pleasure being here, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you very much, Minister and panel.